This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to be talking about 2020 Summer Reading Program ideas. My name is Courtney Wimmers, and I'm the Outreach and Engagement Specialist at the Mid-Hudson Library System. And this is kind of a follow-up to our webinar from last week when we talked about summer reading and kind of the future of the summer reading program in general, which is kind of scary and nobody really knows what's happening right now. So I kind of figured it would be nice if we just had a chance to talk about it. So I want to start off by just talking about some of the trends that I've noticed that are getting thrown around a lot and a lot of things that are being discussed. And then I really want to open it up for discussion for you all to share your ideas or things that you're having trouble with and with like some help brainstorming solutions too. So the beginning is just going to be me talking for a little bit, but then I really want to leave it up for you all to talk to each other. So the first trend that I've noticed being talked about a lot is online presenters. So there's been lots of talk about scheduling performers to do virtual programs online for the summer reading program, which is great. I mean, if you think that you have a very valuable presenter who would add a lot to your summer reading program, then I say go for it. But I wanted to just point out kind of 3 things that you should think about when you're starting to maybe plan for these presenters or book these presentations. The first is to think about what the program is really offering this to your community, and if they could find this somewhere else on the internet. The internet is a vast place and there are many entertaining things on it. So I really want to make sure that you're thinking about what the value of the program is. There's been lots of talk about live sessions versus recorded sessions. So like pre-recorded sessions that performers give to you and allow you to share on your social media pages for a certain amount of time. And if they're charging money for this, I'd be a little cautious because you're basically competing with YouTube. And the video quality on YouTube is pretty high these days. You know, there's some really intense videos that are produced very, very well. So just think about that. If somebody could find what you're offering somewhere else on the internet and it looks better, you might want to think about whether or not that program is really valuable, and especially if you're paying for it. So I've seen lots of costs being thrown around by performers, and I understand that times are very tricky right now. Like they can't do in-person events, which is how they do things. So I understand that they are charging money. That seems valid to me. They are professionals doing a service for you. But you should think about maybe the cost of the program and if, again, the value of the program is worth the cost. Is an online program really the same as an in-person event? It's something for you to think about and decide. I think a live performance is more valuable than a recorded one just because you get that interaction with the audience and the social connections with your community. But at the same time, you have tech issues, as you saw at the beginning of our webinar. So just something to think about there. And then finally, think about the quality. Has the presenter ever done an online presentation before? And do they have the right equipment and skills to make a quality video? Do they know that they shouldn't film things vertically? Do they have a good camera? Do they have a good microphone? These are all kind of things to think about. And I've seen suggestions where librarians are suggesting that the presenters send like a demonstration video so they can kind of preview it before they actually commit to spending money on it. So just some things to keep in mind as you're thinking about booking online presenters for the summer reading program. The next is online programs in general, because that's been a trend for a while now, so that's not really surprising. But I just wanted to kind of say, as we're kind of shifting into doing this for the long haul, it's really important that if you've been doing online programs to look at what is working and what is not working. Reevaluate if some programs are popular than others. If your story times do really, really well, that's probably something you want to keep doing. But if your craft tutorials aren't doing as well, then maybe you would want to kind of redirect your focus and attention to something else. And whether you've been doing online programs or you haven't started doing online programs yet, it's always a good idea to ask your patrons for feedback and to learn what they really want from you. Because if you're producing all this content, that's great, but it's not what your community is looking for right now. You're spending a lot of time that's not really addressing their needs and concerns. So it's always a good idea to ask your patrons what they want, and you can ask them specifically, what kind of summer reading program are you looking for? What would be easiest for you? Would it be a thing where they have like a scheduled time to meet online, or do they want it to be more open and flexible? Um, Things like that. And just a reminder, like I said before on the first slide, is you're competing with the internet at this point. So it's really important to make sure that the programs that you're offering um, are kind of unique to your community and really give your patrons something valuable, whether it's a new skill, educational program, a social connection. That's just really important to keep in mind, because I think it's pretty clear that online programs aren't going away anytime soon. I've gotten a lot of questions about online story times and if publishers will extend the date librarians can use their materials. And when all this started, many publishers had stated that their materials could be used till the end of June. So as of now, aka yesterday when I made this slide, only 2 publishers have extended the dates so far. Macmillan has made their materials available to the end of August, and Sourcebooks has made their materials available through the end of the year, which is pretty great. Um, right now, like I said, these are the only 2, but I'm presuming that more will follow. Maybe not as many options as we have access to now, but I'm guessing that this list will grow. And if you're looking for updates on this, on the COVID-19 resources page under their virtual storytime tab, um, everything's in a Google document. So if you click on the link in that page, you can see all the publishers with their terms and conditions, including the dates, and that's being updated as publishers release extended dates for things. So I know I've gotten a couple of questions on that, so that's the answer I found so far. I've seen lots of libraries doing take and make crafts instead of make and take crafts, which I think is kind of nifty. But I've seen many people, maybe even some of you on this webinar, who are planning to make craft kits for your patrons, and then making it so they can pick them up and do the crafts at home. I want to stress to make sure that there's a connection to early literacy for the summer reading program, because it is summer reading. But I've seen some libraries are already thinking of doing a take and make craft, and then the kids meet online to do like a craft with it and like listen to a story about the craft. So I think that's a really good way of doing it. But there are definitely lots of ideas being thrown around about different types of crafts to do and things to do on a low budget. Um, so if any of you are thinking of doing this and have some ideas that you want to share, definitely do that in a little bit when we have time for discussion. The next trend is story walks. So this is a really cool thing. I think I've touched on it a couple times in previous webinars, but it's basically where you take the pages of a picture book and you kind of make a trail throughout the community, whether that's like a walking trail, or like if you're in a more urban or suburban area, like along sidewalks. But basically, families can go along and walk on these trails and read the stories, and then in between the pages they can talk about what's happening in the book. So I think it's a really good way to encourage both physical exercise, get people out of the house, and also early literacy, which is always good. So these are just some of the trends that I've been noticing have been thrown around a lot, very consistently by many libraries across many states. These seem to be the most popular ideas. So I'm just kind of throwing them out there, so hopefully they can help your guidance a little bit, and as you plan your summer reading program. So one thing that came up as I was planning this webinar is people really wanted to discuss adult summer reading programs. So I wanted to open up the chat and the microphones at this point. If you want to unmute yourself to talk about this, feel free. But are you planning on holding a adult summer reading program? If so, what are you planning? Are you providing incentives? The person who contacted me felt like there's a lot of talk about children's and teen stuff, which is always good because they're the primary group. But I think it's important to remember that adults need a little bit of fun too, and can always be encouraged to read and learn new things. And reading doesn't hurt anybody. So if you would like to unmute yourself and say something about this at this point, or you want to put something in the chat and Kirsten can share it with me, feel free.
Okay, so Anna said they had a lot planned for adult summer reading, but most were craft related. So maybe there's an opportunity to use that take and make program for adults as well. But please feel free to talk about that a little bit. Brian James says we are doing adult and are planning to do a donation for each book that is read, and that they're doing a lecture series on imaginary worlds. And
Oh, that sounds very cool.
Anna also said they plan on doing a Dungeons and Dragons club, but they're not sure if they're going to move that online.
This sounds like great. I really like how the Dungeons and Dragons kind of ties into the summer reading thing. That's pretty cool.
Brian,
If,
I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself, but I think we would be interested to hear more about the lecture series on imaginary worlds that you're talking about.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this was something we had planned in the alternate timeline of the past, where we were going to do these in-person things, and it actually lent itself to adapting online pretty easily. So what we're doing is we're creating kind of libguides on the website about these imaginary worlds, and then holding a discussion where it'd be sort of like a PowerPoint presentation. We're thinking about doing one on Wonderland, one on Star Wars, Marvel, Sherlock Holmes, things like that, things that the imaginary world expands beyond the original story, where there's all of this other story going on. So that's what, and I actually just took a webinar. Somebody in the Western New York Library Association did one on Oz last week. So I took that and it was really fascinating. So it's about the story, the origin of the story, beyond the story. And I think it's just something that a lot of people are interested in. And we tried to pick, topics or worlds that were really popular.
I think that's a great idea. Like, I would go to that. It sounds great. I think it's a really clever way of tying it in with the summer reading theme, and I also think you're going to get some great discussion with that. Like, because people who love their fandoms love their fandoms, so that seems like a great way to bring people together and to introduce people to each other who like the same stuff but probably wouldn't get to meet any other way. So that's definitely very good. You're providing a really nice social aspect with that program.
Thanks.
All right, we have some discussion about D&D online now, and the platform. People are wondering what type of platforms they're using to do that. And Haley says for teens, Skyrim might be an interesting idea.
Oh yeah, Skyrim. That I've put. That's fun. Definitely. I think with teens, anything video game related would be very good. Um, and there's definitely tons of virtual or online worlds to explore with video games. So I'm curious, is anybody purposefully not holding a summer reading program for any reason? Just to kind of get like a sense of if people are kind of steering away from it for any particular reasons? So I think looking back at the last year's summer reading statistics, I think it's about half of our libraries normally do an adult summer reading program. So I'm curious if anybody isn't doing it this year that has normally done it, or if anybody is trying it out for the first time this year who hasn't done it before. And again, feel free to unmute yourself if you would rather speak rather than type in chat.
So Julie Delisle from Chatham says this is the first time this year that they're going to do an adult program.
Ah, good for you guys. Try something new, right? um, can you say why you've decided to do it this year?
Hi, I did the webinar on Read Squared, and it just looked simple to set up. And the book groups that I've had 2 Zoom book groups online, and they've gone really well. And we're starting another reading series devoted to a single author that's got almost full enrollment. So I think people are, they want content, they want to get involved, they want their library back. This is a way to do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you're doing with your programming is spot on in terms of you have to remember like our biggest fans are the readers, right? So if you've programmed on books and reading, you're more likely to get a bigger audience, I think, because that's why people love the library, is because they love the books, that, or at least that's how they start out. And then when they found out all the other awesome stuff that we do, then they're just like, oh my gosh. But people generally start out because of the books, so I think that's very good.
Exactly.
Good luck. I hope it goes really well.
Thank you.
So Anna has a question related to that, how are you deciding which books to choose? Because if you do a book group, how do you know if the people have the book or not, or can get the book?
So I've been noticing people are checking specifically to see what ebooks are available in their collections. So like if I was gonna do an online book club, I would go into Overdrive and or Hoopla or whatever resources we had and make sure that there were copies available for our patrons. So I wouldn't necessarily choose a book right now that wasn't available as an ebook, just because you want to make the book group as accessible to everybody as possible, which is hard enough just doing it online. But I would steer away from doing books that aren't ebooks right now. But if anybody else has something else to add there, or if they found another solution, please jump in.
So Tammy says, we hope to have books from Humanities New York, but since they're not sure if they're going to get them soon, they check ebook options, including Internet Archive. And Julie, who was just speaking, said they use the cost per circ for the book group on Overdrive as well.
Ah, very interesting. Yeah, it seems like that's something that people have struggled with, is because it used to be easy to get the physical book, right? You choose a book that had like 70 copies in the system and you'd be fine, but now it's a little trickier.
So back to the general adult summer reading program, Tammy at Rojan has said that they have a summer reading program that is a reading and discussion group, and it's not tied to the theme with incentives or anything. It's a separate, sort of a separate program.
I think
And
that's totally fine too. Like, don't feel like you have to stick with the theme. Um, as long as you're providing this program in some way, like I'd say that's the important part, is you give people the social connection and the chance to interact with the library still, and people in our community. So don't feel like you have to connect it to the Imagine Your Story theme.
Christine also said that their library at Socrates set up Read Squared for the reading portion, but they're not sure about what to do with programming adult-wise.
I'd say you're not alone. We're hearing some great ideas come out in this webinar, and thank you everybody for sharing them. I think y'all are definitely on the right track, but it's still kind of really up in the air. Like, everybody's just kind of brainstorming right now, and so don't feel bad if you don't have it all planned out by the day yet. I don't think many people are there yet, if anybody. So.
Christine also mentions that book groups don't have to be one book, that it can be based on favorites, a favorite author or a genre, and then sort of let them have a discussion about it and run with it.
That is an excellent point, and that could be a really actually great way to work around the whole number of books available thing. I have heard one library where half the group wanted to read the book that they chose and the other half didn't find it interesting, so instead they're going to come with a book that they've read and share about it, while the other group is going to read this, the other half is going to read this one book. So you could do half and half. There's no rules anymore.
Right. Karen says her eco book discussion group actually works the same way, that they don't all read the same book at the same time. So that works out really well for them. Hilly recommends, since this year's theme is storytelling, doing Mad Lib type activities where you create your own stories could be fun for all ages, I would imagine.
Yeah, actually, that reminds. I saw on the Facebook page. I think it's the Fake Library Statistics Facebook page. Where at the beginning of the whole kind of pause, they put out this thing where it was just like a Google document, and they had the beginning sentence of to a story, and then people could add to the Google Doc and add their sentences and kind of write a story together. So that could definitely be fun.
Right, and Brian reminded us again that if you haven't been into the CSLP site, which is the consortium that puts out the manual, that they have a lot of ideas, programming ideas that have that can be converted to online or already online.
Thanks, Brian. That's a great resource. All right, if there's no more discussion about this, I think we're going to move on to the next topic, which is collaboration. So I want to know if you have started working with any organizations in your community, any schools, nonprofits, businesses, or if you're partnering with another library. I've heard talk that Ulster County, I believe, is going to be trying to work together to do their summer reading program collaboratively. So if anybody is part of that, I'd love to hear about that. But I just want to hear right now who you're working with, who you're thinking of working with, and who can really help you spread the word about summer reading in your community. And I had to throw the Wonder Pets graphic on there because that's always what I think of when I hear the word teamwork, is that song. So. And again, feel free to unmute yourself or you can type it in the chat.
I sent out an email just now, actually, to a few libraries in the area because Millerton has proximity to Connecticut as well, and we have a really great working relationship with Hillsdale, Pine Plains, and Amenia. So I look forward to that. That's going to be a good time because they're all cool people.
That's great to hear. I think if you're struggling right now with your summer reading plans, the best thing to do, and even if you're not, probably one of the best things to do right now is work with your peers. I mean, we're all kind of going through the same struggle right now, of not really knowing what to do and adapting to this new environment and the uncertainty of the future. So if you can make it a little bit easier for yourself and work together with people who are also going through the same stuff, I think that's a phenomenal idea. It's not just all on you. You have partners to bounce ideas off of, and it can be a lot less stressful and more fun. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're interested in working with them.
The other thing I wanted to maybe say to people is that, like, God forbid one of us does get really sick. It might be a good idea to work with other libraries so that, like, there's somebody to pick up the slack, or somebody, like, your programming doesn't go by the wayside. Somebody's there to say, hey, it's okay, this person's down, we'll still promote it, and it doesn't fall onto the staff at your library.
That's another really great point. Like, worst case scenario thing, if you get sick or other staff members get sick and the library needs to shut down because of COVID, then that's a really, really great point. It's kind of like a worst case scenario thing, but you never know with these times. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a good point too.
So it looks like Kingston, Ulster, and Esopus are looking to work together. And Karen mentioned that Putnam County is doing the same. They're gathering together and sharing their events and see what events they can do to join together. There are a couple people who have been working with camps, but they're not entirely sure what that's going to look like this year because we're still not sure if summer camps are going to be open or not yet.
Yeah, I think camps are generally a really great group of organizations to work with because they have a lot of kids for many hours of the day. I believe Livingston did some great work with summer camps last year and really expanded their summer reading program, but obviously we don't know what's going to happen with that yet. So if you have the opportunity to, I'd say that's definitely great and you're definitely on the right track. But I think it'll just remain to be seen if they can actually be open and how they actually function. So just one of those things where we don't know the answer to yet, unfortunately. I'm tired of saying that.
Yeah, we have a couple more people saying that they work with the rec centers. They're not 100% sure of what that's going to look like. I think that you're right. It's getting tiring saying that we don't know all the time, but we don't, honestly, and neither do they. And I think that should give us a little bit of solace. But I know that has anybody started looking at? I know they were talking about how the potential of opening daycare centers again. Has anyone worked with daycare centers in the area during the summer, not just rec programs?
We work with the Head Start program in Millerton, and it works out pretty well. But again, I don't know if they're going to be opening.
That's probably another one of those things where we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens in the next couple weeks, or maybe like 2 days. You never know with these timelines when things get announced and things change. So, but definitely, I think daycares, if they are opening, if they are doing stuff, would be a great resource to reach out to. Has anybody started a partnership with their school districts or their schools?
I feel like I'm talking a lot, but
That's okay.
we had a teacher reach out to us this morning to offer to show up to events so that, like, if she had students, they might feel like a little less gun shy about going to library programs, knowing that she was going to be there, and she also is bilingual, so that's a plus.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's super cool. I think that's a really nice offer on the teacher's part because kids are going through so much right now, and there's so much disruption to their regular routines, and I think seeing familiar faces really helps. I know some people have told me that in their online story times that they're having, that the kids are just really excited to see their faces, which feels really good. So I think that would definitely be good if you could partner with teachers to come to online library events, and just so the kids can kind of see a friendly, familiar face, then that could be pretty cool. Definitely, it just gives them a little bit more stability and comfort and like security, I guess is the right word.
So we have a couple of people who have reached out. Mandy reached out to the school to help coordinate summer reading kickoff kits. And Toby said 3 of the libraries in Columbia County have contacted the same district since they all cover the same area. And so they're waiting to hear back, as well as Donna, who's reached out to the elementary school, who said that they were happy to send home any news about programs over the summer.
That sounds great. And I just want to kind of stress again just how important collaboration is. It sounds like many of you are doing awesome work with this already, which makes me so happy. But it's really important because it takes a lot of the pressure off of just you, and you can work with other people. You can strengthen community partnerships if you're working with community organizations, and that can't be underestimated in times like these. It's we're all stronger together. So, which I'm sure you're tired of hearing too, but it's true. So I think teamwork and collaboration, if you can, for the summer reading program, is definitely going to be a good way to go. All right. So if nobody else has anything to say about that, I just wanted kind of to open it up and talk about what else. What problems are you running into? What solutions have you found? If you want to share what your library is planning so far, so maybe other people can get some ideas, feel free. But I just kind of wanted to open up to broader topics and see what you all have to say.
So I think this one will kick us off pretty well. So Alex, biggest question is about incentives.
Okay. Specifically, incentives in general, what to offer or how to offer, or what exactly?
Well, I think generally it's about the idea of having animations or online rewards, that kind of a thing, as opposed to using the idea of physical incentives, which, many libraries might not be able to get into the hands of children or might not want to get into the hands of children.
Right. So, does anybody have anything that they want to say about that?
I might expound on my question. I know that Read Squared has badges, but do they have little like animations, or when I haven't used it enough to know when you're a reader and you go in and you accomplish a task, if you get like a fun little animation like Microsoft Teams, when you turn in an assignment, it gives you a cool little animation. And my daughter's doing that for elementary school for second grade, and she loves that. But I was wondering if there's something else that other people have run into.
I'm not familiar enough with Read Squared to say if it does that or not, but if anybody is, please jump in, because I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
So Anna
That's kind of.
says she
Oh, go
hasn't seen
ahead.
it, but you can gain access to mini games through Read Squared.
Oh, that's really cool because it adds like a gamification element, and that's always fun.
And I have a couple who are saying yes, there are definitely badges. And Christine says since you can upload your own, maybe they would consider uploading GIFs, but she's not sure.
It's something probably that the Read Squared support team would be able to help you with, and I've heard that their support is really responsive, even in the midst of tons of libraries signing up for their service. So you might want to send them an email, and they might be able to help you out and set something up specifically, which could be pretty cool.
And just generally, Ginny's asking at the Beacon Library and Howland Library Beacon, what kind of online rewards are people using and how are they going about it beyond maybe what's available through automation through Read Squared or any sort of registration program that you might be using?
So for me, this may or may not be helpful. For me, when I think of online rewards, I kind of think of I don't know if you've seen like Patreon accounts where like online content creators will have a Patreon account. So if people donate money to them, they get access to like these special behind the scenes things. So maybe there's a way that libraries could do that where if patrons read like a certain number of books, like for if you read one book, you access this piece of online content. If you read 5 books, you access another piece of online content. I think that's typically how it's done online for like YouTubers and stuff. So that might be something to think about if you create like fun videos or something that people have access to after they read a certain number of books. But if anybody else has any ideas, please feel free, because that's just off the top of my head.
We have actually a couple of libraries that are mailing patrons like ice cream gift cards for Stewart's.
That's a great idea, and that supports a local business. So that's a win-win right there.
And I think that although not off of incentives, but maybe a little bit, people are worried about screen time, which I think that we touched on a couple of weeks ago when we did the first session of the summer reading program. They're worried for
Yeah,
both children and adults.
yeah, I would agree that's a very valid concern. People are tired of staring at screens, and I think it's at this point where even like a library program could just feel like another meeting. So if you have ways to get people to go outside, like the story walks are a great way to do that, where people don't have to be on a device or don't have to be attending an event at a certain time. I think that could go a long way because people are burnt out. And so I think that's another thing to think about when potentially scheduling virtual or online performers is maybe the volume of them. Like it might be okay to not have something like every week type of thing and maybe space it out a little bit more because people are just very overwhelmed. I know me personally. I don't want to look at the computer screen like ever again. So but I think that's a lot of people are feeling that way between working from home and just social media in general. So that's definitely something to think about. And if you have a program where you're thinking of ways to get people out and about, or maybe that doesn't involve being online, please share that.
Nina, I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself, but did you want to expand a little bit on the idea of offering experiential incentives?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this a little bit with some people who I know are on this call, so I apologize if I like give some info but not enough. So feel free to ask questions, everybody. But we're going to offer each week over the summer an experience that people can vote for, basically. So it's things that they don't have to be present to be able to participate in, kind of like a choose your own adventure story. So every time that they read, they earn votes. And the activities that, like some of the activities that we're going to do week by week are, I'm going to let the kids choose what silly color I dye my hair. And one of my coworkers has been growing his beard out during quarantine, and it's fairly long now. So the kids are going to get to decide how he changes his facial hair up. And I say kids, but he's actually our teen coordinator. So it's been fun because it's a fun way to engage everybody. We've got the kids programmers doing things, the teen program, and we're even trying to get our director to let us like pie him in the face or something, but we'll see.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that sounds really fun, first of all, and I hope they choose a good color for your hair. But I think the element that I really like of that is you're giving the kids the choices, and that is really engaging and gets them really invested in it, and it's super good for kind of incentivizing them to do the program. So I think by giving them the choice, that is a phenomenal decision. And like I said, I hope they give you a good choice for your hair color. That's very brave.
The other idea I just thought of, I'm always wary of like purchase-based things or like, going to local businesses because I know not everybody has the economic capital, especially now. But like, what if we like, I mean, our library has a bunch of blank passport books. If we gave like every local business in town like a stamp and an ink pad, and every time you go to a local business, no matter what, you can get a stamp in your passport book, and that's part of like the summer reading program.
That sounds great. That sounds so good. Any way that you can encourage local businesses to participate, they'll love it. First of all, because you're helping people support their business right now, which our small businesses need so much support in it right now. So that sounds like a great idea. Run with that. That's good.
We have a couple of people saying that they use story walks, some of them, a couple of them at the farmers market, which is interesting because we know that those are opening back up. And that's that's a kind of an idea that's a collaboration on a collaboration in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that encourages people to get outside and support those local businesses at the farmers market. So that's kind of a win-win too. Plus, like the whole early literacy thing. Never hurts.
Apologize, I'm trying to condense some stuff here. You guys are typing like the wind, which is wonderful. We do have some people who are considering doing, if able, curbside pickup. So they're talking about giving out physical items like coloring books and YA books or children's books as prizes. And then we do have some people who are concerned that things won't be open during the summer at all. So those collaborations have to really be sort of thought out.
I think that's definitely a valid concern. Like with everything, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know how this whole reopening is going to go and what might actually be open. So it's definitely something to keep in mind and just plan around it the best you can. If it's not possible for businesses to be open and people to be going to them, maybe try to think of other solutions to kind of maneuver around that somehow. I don't have anything off the top of my head that I can think of, but that is a very good point that we don't know where we're going still. So always have a backup plan.
Oh my goodness. Well, Palinville might have cracked the nut on this one. So they're thinking of having their staff dress up as storybook characters and set up a day and time where patrons can drive by to see them as they stand in front of the library, as they socially distance, of course.
That sounds adorable. Oh, I love that idea.
I literally just came up with it as we
I'd
were all
say
brainstorming
go for
here.
it.
Of course, I haven't spoken with my staff yet about it, but I think that will be. I think there'll be all systems go for it. So
I think that gives kids an excuse to visit the library, kind of, and to see familiar faces and to have a little bit of fun. So I think that's a great idea.
I'll let you know as it goes.
Okay.
We actually have a lot of questions about story walks. Is anybody interested in unmuting themselves to give us some background on that? Specifically, what books they use, if there is publisher permission required to do that, and how it's constructed?
Hi, this is Christine from Hermance. We've done story walks a couple of times. The person who does our story time had picked the books, ones that she liked, but we usually purchase 3 copies. 2 of them you take apart and use on the board. So we usually get foam core. We can get it at our local dollar store, and you put each page, you make a title board. You have one that kind of explains how story walk, what the purpose of the story walk is or how it works. You can find that online. You have to put the little register trademark thing when you use the term story walk, but you put, you get 2 books because you need the front and back of each page. So you put the pages on the board. Usually we retype we retype the story itself in a large font on sheets of paper as well. And then we add little symbols or things like that that coordinate with each page of the story. And that way they can have like a checkoff sheet, and the kids have to look for the little symbols and write down what they saw. I mean, you can do it without the sheet, but we've done it at the farmer's market and spread it out through the park, at each vendor. We've also brought it to the elementary school when they've had their early literacy night and put it in the hallways. But in the winter, we have a Christmas, a holiday thing here in town, and we were gonna make a story, and put it in the windows of all the businesses. So we're a small town, so we can pretty much contact businesses, find the owner, even if they're not open, to put a board in the window right now. And that way people, walk through town or, travel around, but you can put it anywhere, on stakes in the ground or lean it up against something. So anyway, that's all I have on that. Thanks.
No, thank you for sharing. That was very helpful. It's always good to hear from somebody who's actually done the thing, so thank you very much.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is on the story walk, is the sheet tell people where the story is located? So they go through the whole story? Does it say go to the next page at such and such a place? How do they know where to go next?
When we've done them, generally it's all in one location, and each board is numbered. You put a big number on each board so they know they're going in the right order. But if we were to do it at businesses, we would say, we would say where it was located. But usually people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
All right, so do we have any other questions about this or any other questions, thoughts in general?
I guess the concern I have is explaining to patrons like why we can't gather traditionally. Like I get that everybody's burnout on screen time, but like we're in the second inning of this, and I think we have a responsibility to the community to like really change this up and keep things online, or like where we're recommending people go and do outdoor activities to incorporate them to summer reading. And I don't know how to explain that to people.
I think you explained it to them by saying your primary goal is to keep the community members and the staff safe. It comes down to safety, and people can argue with that, I guess, but it's kind of silly too. You're being socially responsible and keeping people safe, and right now, most likely for the whole summer, in-person programming is not going to be as feasible as we would like it to be. So I think that's the main argument, is just you have a goal to keep people safe and to keep people healthy and to stop people from getting sick and spreading this disease. So if anybody else has anything that they want to add, feel free, but that's my main argument, is that it comes down to you want to keep people alive, which is a pretty big deal. So and maybe just explain that you understand it's difficult. It's hard for the library staff too. Like, this is all new to us. We would kind of prefer to have things the way we were, I think, a lot of times, but it's not easy for anybody. But we want to do our part to keep people safe.
We do have a couple more specific questions about story walks. So I'm wondering if this is maybe something we can collect some information on and send out to people.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I can pull together some resources and I'll send them out in an email with this recording and the slides.
Oh, here's a good question. When are people planning on kicking off their Read Squared programs?
Great question.
We got a couple of June 1sts, a couple of late Junes.
Late June to give people or even early July to give people a break from being online. I think if we start too early, it's just gonna meld into everything and it's gonna get lost.
That's a good consideration. I know I've seen mixed reviews on this, with some people saying start it now, and other people saying start it later. And I think starting it now, like you just said, it might kind of just blend into school. And I know kids are still doing school, so it might be a lot on top of like homework and stuff right now. I think the suggestions where I saw start it now, it was more in the South where they get out of school sooner. So I don't think it could hurt to wait a little bit. And but again, that's totally up to you. It's up to your community what works best for your patrons. So were there any other dates? Or
I
is that
think,
like the general consensus?
yeah, general consensus is the beginning of June or the end of June, and a couple starting in July when their online school ends. So again, like looking at your school district and your community and knowing when the appropriate time is to, sort of get people moving on something new. And Beacon is going to do late June, early July to stay in line with what they typically would do for their summer reading program. Keep some consistency.
That never hurts. Yeah, that definitely does not hurt. It's a little bit of normalcy in a crazy world. So we are almost out of time, I believe. So if there's any last things that people want to ask or want to say, now's the time to do it. All right, if there's nothing else, that's pretty much what I got. I want to thank you all for coming to this and for sharing your ideas and talking with one another. I hope you got some good ideas out of this, or some new things that you might want to try, and maybe a little bit of guidance on something. I hope it was useful. But if you have any other questions that you want to add in the chat, just pop them in. If you want to send me an email, feel free to do that. But with that, I'm going to say that's the end.